The story starts in a vast townscape. The story records the 211th year of the king's rule, in the month of January. It describes how Noin had just reached the age of 15. The narrative also suggests that Noin will likely never erase the memory, even if he wishes to, of all the events that took place in a distant hut where Noin endured days of shame. During a heated confrontation, Kivaleft observes to Noin that it has been a long time. In response, Noin recognizes their father but swiftly corrects themselves to seek pardon. Kivaleft then calls Noin an idiot, pointing out that everyone knows Noin carries his blood. He further states that he had no option but to provide for Noin for 15 years. With a noticeable change in tone, Kivaleft remarks that Noin can likely guess how burdensome and repulsive that duty was for him. He then proclaims that all of it ends now. In a stern statement, Kivaleft announces that today marks the final time he will see Noin's repulsive face. However, he notes that since Noin, an idiot, shares his blood, it would be too harsh to abandon them entirely. Kivaleft, with a gesture, declares that he will present Noin with a final gift before their departure. He later shares that the Earl family was once granted a small enclave by the royal family, tied to the Alquist knighthood. Kivaleft then chooses to provide Noin with personal funds to manage the enclave, asking if he should not be content with such generosity, though he acknowledges the patronizing nature of the act. Noin, studying a detailed map, finds the idea of a territory and title appealing but recognizes it as merely symbolic, a burdensome tie to the isolated forests on the kingdom's frontier. Noin also notes that Kivaleft likely wants to avoid leaving the land neglected, but rejects the idea of taking on a risky development project, suspecting Kivaleft's plan is to offload both them and the land together. Noin further reflects that Kivaleft is a self-serving oppressor, pushing them to risk their life for survival, and questions how far their father intends to disrupt their existence. Internally, Noin seethes with hatred toward Kivaleft. Noin, revealing that he holds a territory in the southern part of the Kingdom of Lauberg and was born as the eldest son of Earl Maximilian Kivefelt. The tale concludes its backstory by noting that Noin's mother, a commoner servant in the Earl's mansion, was the root of the issue. It describes her as strikingly beautiful for a commoner, catching the Earl's eye, who approached her casually, assuming she was an easy conquest. After becoming pregnant, she spread rumors throughout the mansion about bearing the Earl's child, leading to Noin's birth as an illegitimate child, recognized only due to his Earl lineage. In an opulent setting, the narrative reveals that Noin's father, Dean Foolish, had an illegitimate child before marrying legally, exposing his scandal, while Noin's mother secured a concubine's role, living luxuriously. Meanwhile, Noin, whose existence merely served to elevate his mother's status, received no affection from those around him. The tale then shares that when Noin was 9, his mother died from an illness, marking a turning point. In a new scene, a servant informs Noin that the master has designated a detached house as their new residence, prohibiting the young master from leaving. The narration clarifies that Noin's father lacked the resolve to eliminate his illegitimate child himself, and his legal wife, from another noble family, refused to allow the tainted child near the main household, resulting in Noin's isolation. In a quiet moment, Noin acknowledges the situation with understanding. The account then describes Noin's confinement in a detached house at the estate's edge, where he spent 6 years from childhood to adulthood, like a bird trapped in a cage. Finally, Noin reflects that after their mother's death, he were isolated in the detached house, learning about the world solely through the books provided to them. In a somber room, Noin remembers being taught that their mere existence was shameful. He also reveals a deep yearning for freedom during their years of confinement. The scene shifts to Noin weeping, contemplating a life spent under house arrest. Noin then accuses their father of robbing them, stating he stole 15 years of their childhood by isolating them in a remote place. In a moment of frustration, Noin reflects that just when he thought adulthood would bring freedom, their father offered a title and land, tying them to another distant area as if it were a favor. The narrative notes that Noin's resentment toward their father reached its peak, and he made a silent vow. With resolve, Noin swears to exact revenge on their father, urging him to wait and see. Later, Noin makes a final request, asking if he could purchase one of the Earl's slaves to join them. Matilda then approaches, noticing Master Noin's fatigue and suggesting a brief rest. During a calm moment, Matilda proposes having tea, and Noin, with a soft agreement, accepts the idea. Noin then expresses regret for tiring so quickly after minimal activity, but Matilda reassures them that no apology is needed. In a determined tone, Noin asserts their desire to walk independently, no matter the cost. In a new setting, Noin proclaims the Bezel Forest as their territory, marking the first day of its reclamation. He muses that it's merely a forest, with no people to care for them or vassals to serve them, and even their future home remains unbuilt. Finally, Noin, with a spark of enthusiasm, asks Matilda if this isn't fun. In the dense forest, Noin notices that their prolonged confinement has left their hands and legs frail, deeming this vulnerability the worst possible predicament and suspecting their father intended for them to perish in this wilderness. He confessed honestly that without their identity as a puppet magician, their fate would be uncertain. Broadening the perspective, Noin explains that in the kingdom of Lodberg, everyone, from royals to commoners, can partake in the ceremony of blessing at the Holy Church upon reaching age 10. He notes that only a select few receive the rare gift of magic, considered a precious blessing. Noin elaborates that most gifted individuals possess minor abilities, like conjuring fire, water, or shaping clay for everyday tasks, but exceptionally rare are the wizards who wield potent magic and stand out among the few dozen with magical talents. Noin begins to describe these rare wizards further. In a quiet moment, Noin proclaims themselves a puppet wizard endowed with formidable puppet magic. He clarified that puppet magic involves inscribing a magical circuit onto a puppet, such as a golem, enabling free manipulation of the figure. Noin adds that these golems must be sturdy, heavy, and designed with internal circuits to facilitate smooth magic flow, making them exceptionally strong. Reflecting thoughtfully, Noin admits the golem's critical weakness, their challenging handling. He explains that golems are inherently slow, struggling with combat and basic movement. Noin suggests that extensive training could enable a golem to move like a human, but this demands significant time and resources, which few can spare. He concludes that while puppet magic surpasses having no gift, it pales in comparison to other talents, a view widely accepted in their world. In a triumphant moment, Noin declares that 5 years of near-daily magic practice have finally borne fruit. He expressed joy at possessing the puppet wizard talent, deeming it far more practical in conjuring fire or water, and Matilda concurs, affirming that Master Noin's talent is exceptional. Noin then reveals that their golems hauled the cart through the journey and guided them across the forest. He shares that he scrimped every penny to purchase a golem, considering it a worthwhile investment, while Matilda commends Noin's ability to control such a large golem as proof of their remarkable gift. Noin underscores that he honed this skill tirelessly during their house arrest. Matilda announces that the task is complete. Noin presents the area as their temporary home, finding it strange to live in a tent as the lord of the land. He ponders about Matilda, who quietly acknowledges Master Noin. Noin lauds someone as highly talented and envisions the area blossoming into a town in a few years, then expanding into a grand city. Matilda predicts Master Noin residing comfortably in a personal mansion, leading a prosperous life. Noin reiterates their vision of the place growing into a town and then a city, again praising someone's talent. Matilda asserts that this is merely the starting point. Noin expresses gratitude to Matilda in agreement. Meanwhile, Noin reflects that 2.5 months have passed since their expulsion from the mansion, arriving in the desolate, chilly Alquist territory in mid-March, and suggests launching a new chapter from this place. Finally, Noin vows to meticulously plan their revenge. On the east side of the Alquist territory, Konitz-Discounty, and its capital, Letvik, an aristocrat tells a tale about a noble working to develop the west side of the Bezel Forest. Another aristocrat asks how anyone could develop an area filled only with trees. The same aristocrat then questions the purpose of a feudal lord in a place without any people. Later, an aristocrat calls out to the group, asking if they heard the previous comment. The aristocrat adds that this noble lacks any support, implying his death would go unnoticed. The aristocrat then suggests this noble is the perfect target for revenge. Meanwhile, Noin reflects that a month has passed since the development began. Noin describes the calendar here, which has 6 days per week, 5 weeks per month, and 12 months per year. Noin asks Matilda for advice on what to do next, but Matilda apologizes, saying she knows nothing about such things. Noin brushes it off as mere muttering, asking not to be taken seriously. Noin notices that, thanks to the golems, the plains and farmland areas had expanded. Noin observes that crops in the fields are starting to grow. Noin also reports that the forest clearing work is progressing well. However, Noin believes this area cannot yet be considered a true territory. Noin concludes that a territory requires citizens to be legitimate. Still, Noin laments that there's no way to attract people as he can't spread the word. Noin also admits he lacks extra funds. Noin recalls that his father gave him 300,000 rebros, and after buying Matilda, he has 250,000 rebros remaining. Noin lists the farming tools, magic tools, and land reclamation equipment he bought, including a high-quality tent, as the development work is exhausting, leaving him with 200,000 rebros. He reflects that this amount could sustain a commoner comfortably for a decade. but for a noble reclaiming barren land, it's insufficient. Meanwhile, Matilda sees Master Noin looking troubled and decides to brew tea to ease his stress. Suddenly, Matilda cries out in alarm at Master Noin. Noin responds with a confused look. Matilda then yells that it's an ambush, warning of attackers from the right side of the forest. Noin, stunned, questions who is ambushing them and why. Matilda reports 2 enemies approaching from the right, one from the left, and one from the front. She then resolves to handle the attacker from the front. Noin readies himself to fight, his face focused. An aristocrat gasps, amazed at the unprecedented speed of Golan's movement. At the same time, a bandit evades the Golan's strike. Noin notes the enemy's agility in dodging, puzzled by why such skilled fighters are attacking. Thinking that against ordinary bandits or fools, the Golans would have inflicted serious harm. Noin observes that these enemies are highly skilled. He then ponders the consequences if the situation persists. Meanwhile, Noin's expression grows tense. Matilda lets out a pained grunt as her bunny ears twitch, delivering a powerful kick. The opposing aristocrat notices Matilda's swift movements. Taken aback by her combat prowess, Matilda, focused, plans to defeat him quickly. She readies herself, eager to return to Master Noin's side. Suddenly, a commanding voice declares the fight is over, halting the duel. As tension mounts, Matilda shouts, calling out for Master Noin. An aristocrat presses a knife to Noin's throat, adopting a menacing posture. The aristocrat then questions the situation, implying Noin deserves this and urging others to stop fighting if Noin is so valuable. As the encounter unfolds, Matilda reflects that they faced more trouble than expected. The aristocrat shows mild surprise, simply saying really. He notes the Golans' remarkable speed, questioning who thought they could fight them, and warns that moving the Golans will lead to a predictable outcome. Noin evaluates the situation, realizing that with 5 enemies, fighting now would put him and Matilda at a disadvantage. He also recognizes the risk, knowing that if the Golans attack, the aristocrat might slit his throat. Meanwhile, the aristocrat expresses pleasure, savoring the moment. He then orders Pence and Radley to bind the rabbit. Noin resolves to find a way to survive. Earlier, he observed the leader's authority, noting how he issues commands and appears to lead the group. Noin contemplates his next step, wondering how to handle the leader and whether negotiation is even feasible. As the confrontation escalates, Noin hesitates, asking about the aristocrat's motives and suggesting money. The aristocrat admits they want money, but reveals that their primary goal is Noin himself. Noin challenges him, questioning if he's truly an aristocrat. Under pressure, Noin expresses shock. The aristocrat confesses a desire to kill Noin, stating this as his true motive. He acknowledges feeling only dark, twisted emotions, as if a voice inside him is screaming. The aristocrat's voice drips with bitterness, declaring his burning desire to kill Noin, revealing that nobles caused the deaths of mercenaries he considered family, reducing him from a respected mercenary leader to a mere bandit. He recalls that earlier this year, a noble from the southeast of the country hired his group. He describes battling the Paris kingdom in the east alongside territorial guards amid escalating conflict. The aristocrat mourns that they were all abandoned there. He reveals that their role was planned from the start, to serve as bait to spare the territory's army, resulting in many of his comrades' deaths. He recounts their decision to desert the war and flee, noting that most of his group scattered, leaving only a few behind. He explains that as they kept fleeing, their funds ran dry, forcing them into thievery, and he blames the nobility for their downfall. The aristocrat vows that this is why he's chosen to kill nobles. He states he doesn't know Noin, but has decided to begin his vendetta against nobles now, drawing a firm line and rejecting any chance of negotiation. As tension peaks, the aristocrat admits an inner fear, confessing he doesn't want to die and still has much left to accomplish. He acknowledges that this man, Noin, won't heed his words. He confesses to harboring deep hatred for someone he seeks revenge against. Noin, bewildered, lets out a surprised sound. The aristocrat wonders if Noin could grasp his motives, trailing off about his revenge, only for Noin to cut in, demanding an answer. Noin then presses the aristocrat, asking if the southeast noble who hired and betrayed them was Earl Maximilian Kivefelt. The aristocrat reels in shock, questioning how Noin knows that name. Noin starts to reply, saying that in any case. Then, Noin suddenly erupts into laughter, stating he understands the situation perfectly. The aristocrat demands to know why Noin is laughing and what's so amusing. Noin explains that he's overjoyed to meet them. Smiling, Noin remarks that even the aristocrat loves to curse his vile father. He adds with glee that it's an incredible coincidence. As the story unfolds, Noin recalls a period when he was confined to his home. He mentions that Matilda helped him gather all kinds of news during that time. Noin reflects on those days, He notes that when his father deployed troops for the conflict, he apparently hired many mercenaries at a lower cost than the army. Noin observes that even these mercenaries were manipulated and abandoned by that man. He describes him as a cruel, greedy tyrant who acts solely for his own gain. Noin shouts Maximilian Kivifeldt's name with force. He declares that he views his father as contemptible, vile scum, unworthy of respect. Noin pauses, his face thoughtful. He admits he never imagined meeting them here. Noin reveals that he is Maximilian Kivifeldt's son. He shares that he, too, has a score to settle with his father. Noin asks if they would be willing to hear his story. The aristocrat nods, saying he understands Noin's predicament. He reflects that realizing Noin is connected to **** makes the world feel tiny. Noin proposes that the aristocrat abandon his plan to kill nobles and seek a different form of revenge. The aristocrat asks what Noin means by suggesting another revenge. He then interprets Noin's words, questioning if Noin is proposing they kill Earl Kivifeldt instead of him. Noin, surprised, says it seems the opposite to him. Noin clarifies that he needs his father alive and well to carry out his own revenge. The aristocrat seeks further explanation, asking what Noin means by that. As the idea takes shape, Noin announces he wants them to become his citizens. The aristocrat lets out a shocked noise. He questions if Noin is serious, while Noin insists he's speaking sincerely. Noin shares that his father robbed him of his freedom during his childhood. Determined, Noin vows to take back everything he lost from his father. He expresses his ambition to gain all that his father still lacks. Noin pledges to build this territory based on his own values and vision. He aspires to live as a lord cherished by his people. Noin believes that by doing so, his father will soon hear of his achievements. He imagines the look on his father's face. Noin wonders about the expression his father will have when he hears of his son's success. He ponders how his father will react when he learns that his illegitimate child, whom he wished dead, is thriving as a successful, happy lord. Noin muses that his father, haunted by the fear that the world might uncover his buried scandal with a maid, will live a life plagued by anxiety, always with a bitter taste in his mouth. Noin sums up his thoughts simply. He proposes that by living happily and successfully on this land, they can cause Maximilian Kivifeldt endless trouble for the rest of his days. Noin encourages them, as citizens of his territory, to abandon their dull plan for revenge and instead pursue a joyful, satisfying vengeance that will bring them delight. Noin's deeply warped personality stems from a troubled origin. Born without his mother's love, he never spoke to her and only interacted with household maids. These maids constantly told him his birth was a mistake, creating a childhood that stunted his growth into a well-adjusted person. His father, a noble, publicly shames Noin, lamenting that his eldest illegitimate son cannot read or write. This humiliation spreads widely. Eventually, Noin is granted a private tutor for a single year to learn literacy, during which he recognizes the constraints imposed on him all along. Amid this, Noin questions why everyone treats him like garbage despite his innocence, concluding that the world is a cruel place. A pivotal moment comes when Noin is imprisoned, where he meets Matilda, a beastman slave assigned as his caretaker. His life begins to center on constant conversations with her. For the first time, Noin experiences love from another person. Soon he discovers the reality of love, previously just a concept in books. Reflecting on this, Noin finds being loved immensely fulfilling. He craves more love from others. Noin longs to be loved, respected, and admired, terrified of losing this newfound joy. Ultimately, he yearns for boundless happiness to compensate for the misery that has defined his life until now. Noin reflects on his oppressive father, who governed through fear, and vows to rule as an ideal noble, earning respect through virtue. He imagines being compassionate, treating his subjects kindly, and becoming a lord cherished by his vassals. Above all, Noin is determined to protect this happiness from being stolen. He soon expresses his fervent wish for others to join his land as citizens, urging them to introduce themselves. Yuri steps forward, presenting himself as the former leader of the Crimson Sword mercenaries, 35 years old. Pence introduces himself as Yuri's right-hand man, 28 years old, while Radley claims to be the group's seasoned fighter, around 30, confident in his combat skills. May shares her name, identifying as Yuri's partner, coyly withholding her age, and Bart explains that his God-given face made him the group's negotiator and information gatherer, aged 24. Noin acknowledges them, Yuri, Pence, Radley, Mai, and Bart, and introduces himself and Matilda, warmly welcoming them. Suddenly, an unknown voice addresses Noin, admitting their intent to kill him and questioning why he seeks to make them citizens. Noin, intrigued, responds by asking if that's truly the case. Noin passionately urges the group to abandon petty vengeance like killing a noble, inviting them to join him as citizens for mutual gain, built on love and respect. He suggests they can surpass what Earl Kivifelt took from them, offering a fresh start and a new home, and asks if they also want to rob him of his happiness. Beaming with optimism, Knowing promises to be a just lord, cherishing all his citizens and fulfilling their desires. Yuri, observing closely, senses no deceit in Knowing's words. He reflects on how an unstable person begging for help could easily be abandoned, but pauses, considering that finding happiness after their ordeal might not be so bad. Yuri silently questions if this is truly acceptable, wondering if they can trust Knowing and build a joyful life after everything. He recalls that Knowing's father sent an army to hunt them, asking if it's safe for Knowing to associate with them. Knowing confidently reassures them, wagering that the army won't reach this remote area and telling them not to fret. He explains that his father's ineffective army won't bother searching such a distant place, predicting his father will skimp on search costs and soon abandon the effort. Smiling, Knowing suggests they can settle the issue now. He proposes they join him in a revenge that promises a joyful life alongside it. Pence, hesitant, asks if they can't just resolve things here and now. Pence announces his desire to begin his revenge by killing nobles, regardless of their identity, stating that if it's what the boss wants, they won't object. He adds that as their comrades die one by one, they sink deeper into despair each day. Pence admits there are moments he wishes they could stop this cycle. He then reflects that after hearing Knowing's story, it's evident their plans won't impact him, noting Knowing has already been forsaken. Pence argues that killing Knowing would bring them no benefit and is certain it would only lead to their ruin later. Smiling, he suggests their goals align with Knowing's. Bart questions if the group is certain. They stand united, confirming their commitment to follow their leader, whose decision is final. Bart shares that they've all lost so much, to the point of becoming bandits. He declares that if Knowing promises to help people like them rise again, they will become his sword to protect him and his shield to defend against all enemies, pledging their loyalty from this moment. Knowing expresses gratitude, vowing to protect his loyal retainers in return. Knowing reflects that the group has now officially become his people. He asks if Matilda is upset, but she assures him she could never be angry with him, Lord Knowing, and denies holding any anger toward Yuri or the others. Knowing explains that they, too, were victims of his cruel father, and having nowhere else to go, he chose to accept them as his people, to which Matilda agrees, while Knowing shows a thoughtful demeanor. Matilda then points out that they attacked Lord Knowing, particularly Yuri, who tried to kill him for an unjust reason, and she declares she cannot forgive them. Yuri, offering a finger as atonement if Knowing finds her anger fair, surprises Knowing, who is confused by her words. Matilda suggests Yuri's left pinky finger as the penalty, but Knowing quickly interrupts, asking her to hold off. Yuri agrees, but Knowing firmly objects, saying she's already his subject and he doesn't want violence so soon, and Yuri reluctantly consents. Knowing then declares he forgives Yuri's actions against him, but notes she insulted Matilda by calling her a female rabbit, stressing that Matilda is more precious to him than anyone. As a punishment, he decides Yuri can kick Bart and asks Matilda if this is acceptable, to which she gives her approval. Knowing announces that discussions of punishment and consequences are over, encouraging everyone to collaborate in developing their territory. He notes it's already evening and suggests buying tents and essentials tomorrow, but Yuri says they're fine sleeping outside temporarily. Knowing rejects this as unacceptable, unwilling to let his valued people sleep outdoors constantly, and references a domain management guide from his family's study, stating that to boost productivity, people need proper clothing, food, and shelter. He explains that residents in ragged clothes, eating meager meals, and exposed to harsh weather cannot perform well, emphasizing that a decent quality of life improves their work, benefiting the Lord, as the saying goes. Additionally, he declares he's investing in them now and looks forward to their future cooperation. The scene then shifts to Viscountcy Konitz, Repvik, the capital, where Knowing ponders how to assign roles. He assigns Pence and Radley to guard the wagon, decides he, Matilda, and Bart will visit the Kleber Trading Company, and instructs Yuri to stay behind due to his bandit reputation, while Bart enthusiastically calls him Knowing Sama. Bart asks if he can handle the shopping, and Knowing praises Bart's impressive negotiation skills, to which Bart responds confidently. Knowing then tasks Bart with purchasing a tent and daily necessities, and Bart assures him it's no issue. The setting moves to Kleber Trading Co., where Eliza greets them with surprise, recognizing Sir Knowing, and Knowing responds with a greeting. Knowing expresses his happiness about welcoming his first villagers yesterday and needing food for them, earning Eliza's warm approval. He requests salt, barley, pickled and fresh vegetables that last, seeking Eliza's assistance. Eliza eagerly agrees, inviting Noin to sit and wait. She instructs Marco to help with stocking and Anna to bring tea for Noin. Noin explains that Kleber's shop, located near Ritovik's West Gate, functions as a grocery store for commoners. He shares that he's familiar with the shop, having visited multiple times and knowing Eliza, the owner. Anna then urges Noin-sama to move forward. Noin thanks her, confirming her identity, and Anna responds with a shy affirmation. He asks if Anna can assist at the store, impressed by her ability to read, write, and handle arithmetic for managing inventory and ledgers, expressing his amazement. Noin also recognizes the advanced arithmetic skills needed for ledger work. Meanwhile, Anna cautiously asks Lord Noin about his efforts to develop the Great Basil Forest to the west. Noin confirms he governs that land after various events, recounting his long journey from the kingdom's southern region. Anna is astonished by his travels, admitting she's never left Retvik since birth. Noin inquires if Anna is curious about the world beyond the city, and she enthusiastically confirms, mentioning her late father's merchant background. Suddenly, Bart calls out to Lord Noin in pain, then reports that he's purchased everything requested and loaded it onto the cart, prompting Noin to note the quick work, while Eliza watches quietly. Noin starts to introduce a new resident from yesterday to Eliza. Bart greets the group, introducing himself by name. He shares his past, explaining how he drifted as a refugee, believing his life was finished until Sir Noin saved him, and now lives in the Arkwright Dominion. Eliza praises Lord Noin's compassion for commoners like them, expressing gratitude that Bart was helped by such a kind lord. Bart vows to serve with all his strength to repay this generosity. Eliza then asks for a brief pause. She offers a gift to celebrate Lord Noin's acceptance of new citizens and their hardships as Bart receives high-quality dried grapes. Bart thanks Eliza for her generosity, and she urges him to do his best. Meanwhile, Noin admires a charismatic man with social skills, showing enthusiasm. Eliza says goodbye, inviting them to return as a wagon pulled by large creatures carries the group along a forested path. Pence asks about Bart, and Noin calls the meeting perfect. Noin humorously notes that 83% of votes label Bart as the foreigner, laughing, while Bart appreciates the remark. Bart then wonders if they bought enough towels and soap for everyone, noting such items are usually for the wealthy. Noin reassures the group that, living in forest tents, they must keep their bodies and clothes clean. He expresses his wish to be a lord deserving of their efforts, promising to properly organize their lives. Noin believes that ensuring their comfort will spur rapid territory development. Matilda asks if this ties to the pre-investment he mentioned to the boss, and Noin excitedly confirms she's beginning to grasp it. The group's journey back from Retvik kicks off with hostile kobolds closing in. Noin senses danger, and Pence confirms it's a kobold. Noin suggests swiftly crushing them with a golem, while Pence pledges to take them out quickly. Pence then thinks about returning safely under the Lord's guidance, feeling only fit to carry bags, and dreading the boss's reaction if caught. Pence takes charge, promising to wrap things up fast. He politely asks Noin-sama to step back and observe. Noin later commends Pence for instantly defeating the kobold, calling it impressive. Though Noin brushes it off, focused on destroying humanity, and Pence humbly ties his success to an unworthy light. Radley criticizes Bart's slow handling of a kobold, threatening to report him, but May defends Bart, saying Radley's just too powerful. Meanwhile, Noin feels lucky that Matilda's first follower is a skilled fighter, and Matilda credits it to God supporting Lord Noin's vengeance. Lastly, Pence wonders what to do with the kobold bodies, noting there's no time to process the meat, and Noin decides to take only the magic stone and fangs, leaving the rest for forest animals, with Pence nodding in agreement. Noin returns home, expressing surprise, as Mai asks Yuri why he shaved his head. Yuri explains that his red hair makes him too noticeable, hinting at a possible wanted poster and believing a new look, maybe with a beard, will conceal his identity as the wanted mercenary from the southeast. Radley then asks Mai how she feels about her lover's altered appearance, and Mai confidently says she's fine with it. Mai adds that Yuri's coolness remains unchanged, no matter his look. Noin notices Yuri's affection from others, but Yuri brushes it off, annoyed. Yuri then speaks to Lord Noin, acknowledging the settlement as his but questioning its lack of progress. Noin, stumbling over words, explains it's only been a month since they entered the forest, with just him, Matilda, and the golem, leaving the place undeveloped. Noin insists the settlement is comfortable though, with a high-quality tent, essential magic tools, a nearby clear river, and helpful golems. Yuri recognizes the challenge of building in such a place, commending Noin's determination to keep going. Noin shares that his drive comes from seeking revenge on a certain father and finding happiness. Yuri responds with empathy. Noin then proclaims that with talented allies like Yuri, they'll shape a future together beyond just him and Matilda, while Matilda dreams of the settlement growing into a village and eventually a bustling town filled with potential. Noin rallies everyone to collaborate diligently moving forward. A week later, as indicated by a narration box, the weary group pauses for a break. Yuri grumbles about his sore back, calling it a muscle ache debuff, and Pence concurs, saying it's unlike battle pain. Yuri then shares that he's finally gotten the hang of farm tools, while Radley notes the difficulty for them, having no prior farming experience, and May confesses everything feels strange and new. Noin commends their efforts, sees their fatigue, and apologizes for having such skilled people focus only on farming. Yuri, meanwhile, asks what else they can do, pointing out they're the only ones in the domain besides a few others. He lists their tasks: clearing the forest, preparing field foundations, maintaining existing fields, and cooking for all. Yuri admits that with the Lord and retainers working hard, they have no grievances. May then inquires about Noin's plans for the field. Noin calls her question excellent and eagerly shares the intended crop. With enthusiasm, Noin dramatically presents a potato. Surprised, Noin remarks she's never seen such a plant before, explaining it's a crop from a distant southern continent, used in this kingdom only as decoration. Noin recalls learning about it from a dusty book in the Count's mansion. Noin explains that potatoes grow easily, reproduce quickly, and are packed with nutrients. She adds that in the South, they're known as the crop of salvation. She feels fortunate for securing a barrel of them at the port. Noin then declares that these potatoes will secure food supplies and boost the territory's future growth, while Yuri responds with a surprised, thoughtful noise. Yuri reflects on never imagining he'd return to farming as a former mercenary at this stage of life, sparking Noin's curiosity with a questioning sound. Noin suggests it's more like being an independent farmer since they're working their own land. She then asks what's troubling everyone, her question hanging in silence. Yuri wonders if they're merely tenant farmers on Noin Sama's fields, but Noin corrects him, stating the fields belong to them. She reminds them of her earlier words, pointing out that this is May and Yuri's field and that is Pence's, though Yuri interrupts, saying he thought they were just dividing work zones. Noin firmly states she won't let them be just tenant farmers. She shares her goal as a lord to find great happiness here, which requires vastly enriching the territory, and for that, she'll need many skilled people to serve as vassals for the Arlquist Viscount family. Noin shares his wish for everyone to become his squires. Yuri silently wonders if they're the ones meant to take on that role. Noin then names Yuri his chief retainer, praising his undeniable skills as a former mercenary leader and asking for honest feedback and occasional critique. He appoints Pence as vice captain of the retainers, explaining that as the territory grows, he and Yuri will be busy, and Pence's experience as a former mercenary assistant leader will be valuable. Noin assigns Radley as a mighty warrior to protect the territory, Bart as a retainer managing external affairs, and May, the longest-serving female retainer, to use her role and talents effectively. Reflecting on the past week, Noin notes their intelligence, dedication, and loyalty, promising to entrust them with greater responsibilities and prepare them to aid his revenge. Yuri suggests it's time to resume work, and Pence agrees, amazed that they'd gone from rootless mercenaries to landowners. Pence addresses Noin as Lord Noin, pledging that they'll be hardworking and capable citizens. Noin observes that they've saved up a decent amount and proposes they go earn the Arlquist territory's first cash income. 4 months ago, Sir Noin was exiled from the mansion and sent to develop the frontier, and Matilda notes how quickly time has passed since that January event. She speaks of Sir Noin's talents, describing how he turned a forest into fertile land, and with his compassionate nature, reformed a group of former mercenary bandits into loyal squires. As the Lord of Arukasudo, he achieves remarkable progress every day. Today, Matilda is preparing for a new journey, and Noin reminds her it's nearly time to depart. She explains that this trip marks their first deal with a major trading company, and she gets ready to leave. The scene then shifts to Retviz, the capital of Viscount Konitz's territory, where Noin examines magic stones, fangs, and claws harvested from furred demonic beasts. He reflects on defeating many beasts and demons since beginning to develop the land, noting that selling these items will provide food and living expenses for some time. Noin declares that he's heading to the Miles Trading Company, a leading firm in the Konitz Viscounty, after Eliza recommended it as the best place to sell Alka's territory products. He mentions that the company has branches in major northwestern cities and sales networks in the northeast, southwest, and even the central capital region. As the story progresses, Noin explains that the Miles Trading Company supplies the Viscount Konitz family, earning a stellar reputation, and as business partners, they are flawless. Yuri questions if this deal might draw attention from the Konitz family, but Noin assures her it's legal and not a concern. He reveals that Viscount Konitz knows they're developing the Basil Great Forest, as he could tell from the city gate soldiers' demeanor, though that's the extent of it. Noin reflects that a high-ranking noble like Viscount Konitz wouldn't notice someone as insignificant as him. He then explains that in the kingdom of Roadburg, dukes to barons are upper nobility, while viscounts and knights are lower nobility, with a wide power gap between them. Noin lists duke, marquess, count, viscount, baron, noting that viscount and baron are lower nobility titles. He describes how Yulia Yuru and Ulk of the Count Kienitz family, prominent in the northwestern kingdom of Hoikusei, hold elite upper nobility status, far above him, a low-tier noble, despite sharing noble blood, a gap as vast as heaven and earth. Yuri adds that this disparity will eventually change. Yuri questions if Noin will one day stand as her equal, and he confidently replies that he will, as it's crucial for his revenge. The scene then shifts to the Shokei Miles Company. Noin decides to focus on business discussions, assigning Matilda and May to handle the shopping, to which Matilda confidently agrees, addressing him as Lord Noin. He expresses that he'll miss Matilda during their separation and asks her to assist May with shopping, as it would be too challenging for Mai alone, while Yuri and Bart join him for the meeting. Matilda acknowledges her duties, apologizing for her selfishness, and Noin thanks her, promising a quick reunion as they part ways on the street. Noin then muses to himself, declaring it's showtime for the usual business banter. At Miles & Co., an assistant greets them, asking how they can assist, and Noin introduces himself as Noin Alkvist, Baronet, from the territory west of Viscount Konitz's domain, requesting to sell monster furs and magic stones hunted in his land. The assistant verifies his name, Baronet Noin Alkvist, and asks him to wait briefly. Yuri comments that it seems like they're fetching a higher up, and Noin agrees, noting that despite his low rank, he's still a titled noble. He reflects on his significant progress in developing his land, bringing evidence today, and considers that he might be seen as a promising young noble, potentially opening doors to guild executives. Noin hopes for a high-ranking contact, ideally someone influential, though he doubts the odds. An assistant apologizes for the wait, informing them that the company head wishes to discuss business. Benedict Miles, introducing himself as the Trade Association chairman, greets them warmly. Noin expresses gratitude for the chairman personally meeting a newcomer like him, while Benedict, asking to be called just Benedict, says Noin's achievements have reached even merchants like him, and Noin recalls his many visits to Trevik. Benedict notes the furs and magic stones Noin brought, and Noin explains that his great forest territory, though undeveloped, is rich in hunting game. Benedict praises the territory's vast potential for growth, and Noin, detecting no sarcasm, recognizes the flattery as a merchant's tactic. Noin starts by detailing the goods he brought, including a plump deer's pelt and its magic stone, enough for one. Benedict responds enthusiastically, saying it's helpful since they're always low on stock, and it's a relief for them. Noin notices Benedict's warmer reaction but senses his underlying motives. He then lists 5 gluttony rabbit pelts with their magic stones and claws, 3 kobold pelts, 6 magic stones and claws, 4 goblin magic stones, and fox and boar pelts, assuring they're all top quality and requesting an assessment. Noin thanks Benedict for a satisfying transaction, noting the offered price of 8,000 rebro, compared to the market's 7,600 rebro. Benedict mentions adding a small token of appreciation for meeting Noin. He expresses a desire to build a closer relationship with Noin, while Noin recalls Yuri's habit of briefing him on market prices and forecasts. He notes that Yuri would have signaled if anything was off in the catalog, but she didn't. Benedict hopes for Noin's continued business. Later, an assistant questions the extra 400 rebro, asking the guild master if it was wise, and Benedict explains it's beneficial to strengthen ties with nobility. Benedict muses that if Noin's pioneering efforts succeed, their connection will yield profits, but if Noin fails, they can simply sever ties without any loss, making it a low-risk investment. Noin suspects the guild master is thinking exactly that, while Bart, reflecting on the smooth business negotiation, wonders if Noin was preoccupied with those thoughts. Noin admits that it's just business for them, so it's expected. He notes that their courteous treatment likely stemmed from those calculated advantages, confirming the merchant guild's strong reputation, and considers securing this connection a major success. Noin questions if his negotiation performance was adequate, and Yuri responds thoughtfully, then assures him it was certainly fine. She declares that his efforts were more than sufficient, giving him high praise, and suggests they reunite with Matilda and the others. Meanwhile, Matilda trails behind May, who suddenly questions something serious. May then confronts Matilda, asking if she truly dislikes them that much. May questions if Matilda deeply dislikes them, observing that he barely acknowledges her and responds minimally, much like when they were in the territory. Matilda admits their initial encounter was dangerous and expresses genuine remorse. She insists she's now striving to live honorably. May wonders if apologies and efforts can overcome the warrior's disdain and asks what it would take to gain his trust. Matilda firmly denies any dislike for the warrior, confessing she's unsure how to connect with anyone besides Lord Knowing, as her conversations were once limited to him. She reveals a gold coin, the price a slave merchant placed on her life, and explains that beast folk face varying treatment across regions, with the kingdom of Lodberg being particularly harsh. Matilda notes that the northern kingdom is more welcoming to beastmen, while the south is more prejudiced. She recounts being enslaved in the southeastern kingdom at age 5 and later bought by the Kivalef noble family. Reflecting on her time there, Matilda describes a scene where a servant strikes her, scolding her for failing a task and demanding she clean faster, punishing her excuses and tears with more blows. She shares how she lost all hope, her body surviving but her heart lifeless, enduring that despair for 10 years. At 15, Matilda was assigned a new role, with a servant announcing that she, as a slave, would deliver meals from the main mansion to the annex and manage other necessities using a monthly allowance. The servant added that any needs should be communicated through letters delivered by Matilda to the main building staff, as the master ordered her to handle all personal requirements. Knowing instructed that the annex should not be left, and the servant confirmed compliance. Fearing violence, Matilda wondered if a boy would strike her next, but she soon expressed pity for his suffering, calling it tragic, and reassured herself that things were fine now. When Noin asked her name, she introduced herself as Matilda, addressing him as young master, but he shared his name and preferred Lord Noin, prompting her apology and readiness for punishment. Noin proposed they eat together at the table, not on the floor, and noticing her unappealing meal, planned to request the same food for her the next day. He suggested she bathe, pointing out her dirtiness and wishing for her to be clean, which she understood as a rule to avoid tracking dirt indoors, agreeing to shower. Noin clarified she should soak in the tub, use a cloth, and promised to treat her injuries later. Confused by his intentions, Matilda found them strange and unsettling, admitting she bathed too long without permission and asked for punishment. Noin stayed silent, then assured her he wasn't like cruel people, allowing her to take her time bathing. He urged her to voice her wishes, vowing no harm or bullying, and expressed a desire to pamper her. Inviting her closer, Noin suggested they sleep together, revealing his long-standing admiration for kindness and his eagerness to share it with her. Noin shares his wish to give Matilda tasty food, plans to dress her in fresh clothes, and ensure she bathes every day, hinting at further care to come. Matilda weeps quietly, reflecting on Noin's kindness, which taught her about human worth, wisdom, and most importantly, love. She vows to follow her master anywhere, through forests, wastelands, battlefields, or even hell itself. May notes that Matilda's world revolves solely around Noin, with her heart and mind consumed by him. Matilda affirms that Noin is her entire world, embracing their shared happiness. However, May gently urges Matilda to slowly start talking to others besides Noin. She praises Noin's skills, foreseeing the territory's growth and rising population, and encourages Matilda to learn to engage with others to stay valuable by his side. Matilda recognizes the wisdom in May's advice but admits she's unsure how to proceed, leading May to suggest they become friends, offering herself as Matilda's practice partner. Surprised, Matilda hesitates, lost in thought. Noin softly asks Matilda to stay with him forever, and she warms to the idea of practicing conversation, expressing her willingness to try. Mai eagerly agrees and proposes they meet the others, to which Matilda responds positively. Mai looks back on the 3 months since they began farming, noting it's now early June and feeling proud that they succeeded. She turns to Matilda, eagerly sharing that they finally achieved their goal. Meanwhile, Matilda speaks to Lord Knowing, declaring that this day will be remembered in the history of the Alukkas territory. Knowing proudly shows off the first potatoes grown in their land. Matilda, addressing the group, says it's fantastic. She then examines the potatoes, commenting that they're odd and slightly unsettling crops. Knowing, feeling a bit hurt, defends them, saying he raised them to be cute and plump. Yuri explains that planting one piece produces about 10 potatoes, estimating an impressive harvest rate, while May notes they come from the southern continent, mentioning the crop's story of saving a nation, which she's heard 5 times. Knowing compares it to wheat, which yields 15 times at best and 3 times at worst, calling it inefficient, and praises potatoes for yielding dozens of times more, truly a savior crop. He adds that on this continent, potatoes are only decorative plants, recognizing that other continents' cultures differ. Finally, Pence wonders if they planted just 1 barrel's worth, estimating a harvest of 30 or 40 barrels of potatoes, and thinks of his wife's story. Bart proposes that such a large harvest could be sold beyond the territory, but Knowing refuses, saying they're not ready to sell outside yet. Knowing then asks Yuri if he grasps the significance of these potatoes. Yuri reflects on the idea of military strength. He explains that a crop easily grown in large quantities as a staple food enables a few farmers to sustain many soldiers, noting that the same population in a territory can greatly alter the size of its army. Knowing agrees, confirming Yuri's understanding. He points out that their territory is the only one growing potatoes for food, which gives them a major edge. Knowing adds that a smart noble would see potatoes not just as a crop but as a military resource, planning to cultivate them solely in their territory, and carefully choose who to sell them to and at what price when exporting. He stresses that even one potato provides a strategic advantage. Yuri questions whether the whole potato is edible, and Knowing advises removing the sprouts and cooking it thoroughly. Meanwhile, Bart asks for that dish to be brought over. As the scene changes, the group enjoys a feast with various dishes and people gathered around the table. Finally, Knowing announces that today celebrates their first harvest, raising a cheerful toast. The group erupts in a joyful cheer. Matilda asks about the flavor, and Knowing praises its tasty, satisfying quality, seeing why it's a staple food. Pence nods, trusting the Lord's judgment, but hesitates about eating an unfamiliar food. As the moment unfolds, hands split potatoes to eat. Bart remarks on the unique texture. Yuri agrees it's both true and delicious, and Radley eagerly asks for one more, then 2. Matilda notes it looks appetizing even when cooked beyond boiling, and May concurs, suggesting it could be prepared in many ways. Knowing proposes slicing it thinly and frying it, thinking it'd pair well as a snack with drinks. Matilda suddenly asks if something's wrong. The scene shifts as Knowing reflects on never imagining they'd share a meal with so many at the mansion's table. Knowing shares he feels like a happy man. May, however, insists this happiness is too small for Knowing's grand ambitions. Surprised, Knowing questions if that's true, and May confidently confirms it is. May urges Knowing not to settle for this level of joy. Pence adds it's insufficient for their revenge, and Bart predicts even more people will join them in time. Pence announces they'll resume preparing farmland tomorrow, while Bart stresses that several harvests remain and they urgently need more workers, emphasizing the point. May agrees, highlighting the demand for additional people, and Knowing admits the need, apologizing for getting emotional with just the 7 of them. Knowing then contemplates expanding the population, recognizing it as a pressing matter. The scene transitions to Reykjavik, the territorial capital of Viscount Kinnitz. At the Lord's manor, a servant informs the Lord that a group of refugees is begging to enter the city and asks for his orders. Lord Arnold Konitz inquires about their numbers, learning there are 31, displaced from their village by conflict, and remarks that it's a significant group. Arnold notes that Reykjavik, their capital in the kingdom's far northwest, often receives refugees redirected from other territories, calling it a nuisance. He reflects that even a lord cannot recklessly admit refugees, explaining that an unchecked influx disrupts public order. Arnold weighs his options, wondering if rejecting them might spark violence and considering if someone else could handle them. The narrative progresses as Arnold recalls 3 months of reports about a minor noble who acquired part of the Great Bizzle Forest west of their territory. He infers the noble is developing the forest and likely needs people. Arnold schemes that by sending the refugees there, they could gain the noble's favor. The scene shifts as Arnold addresses Noan Alkvist, acknowledging him as a viscount. Arnold instructs Knowing, now a neighbor, to prove his usefulness. A question comes up when Bart inquires about the Lord of Konitz territory. Knowing mentions she met him once but doesn't have much to say. Bart acknowledges that she did indeed meet him. Knowing explains it was just a brief greeting before a forest clearing task. She then recalls Arnold Konitz, aware only that he's a prominent noble. As the story goes on, Knowing feels certain that others know a lot about her. She suggests they've likely even looked into the fact that the Kivalith family previously owned the neighboring territory. Knowing then thinks that if they do, they'll quickly uncover the connection between her and her father. She notes her father's notorious scandals, mentioning the dark mark of a son born from a servant before his official marriage. Meanwhile, Bart realizes this could lead to rumors about Sir Knowing's background. Bart then exclaims that this seems quite serious. Pence agrees it's true, noting someone might target Lady Knowing again to settle a score with Count Kivalith. Noin reassures them it's fine, confident it won't happen. Bart counters that you can't be sure, citing a past incident involving them. Pence admits they attacked without knowing their ties to the Count. Noin reminds them she previously said minor nobles like her aren't even noticed by others, adding that high-ranking nobles have better things to do. Lastly, Noin reflects that despite her potential as gossip material, it doesn't matter much. As the situation develops, Noin clarifies that revealing her origins would mean publicizing her father's scandal, which would turn the Kivalift earldom family against her. She then notes that Viscount Konitz would prefer to steer clear of pointless disputes among nobles. From this, Noin deduces that she'll likely face no trouble. Bart questions if that's really the case. Pence comments that being a noble seems tough with all its problems. Noin agrees, saying it's indeed a world filled with bothersome issues like scandals, appearances, and allies versus enemies. She continues, stating that despite this, becoming a successful lord and noble promises a dazzling, joyful future. Determined, Noin vows to play her hand wisely, promising to show everyone, driven by a desire for sweet revenge against her despicable father. As their journey moves forward, Matilda announces they'll soon reach Retbiz. She then brings up their portion of today's shopping. A servant then calls out to Sir Alkvist. The servant informs him that Lord Arnold Konitz has summoned him and that he must be escorted to the mansion right away. Another servant, shocked, addresses him as Your Excellency. The servant then declares that Sir Alkvist has arrived. Arnold responds with an okay, recalling that when Viscount Alkvist came 3 months ago, he had only one attendant with him. Arnold notes that based on routine reports, the population remains under 10. He adds that there's not enough manpower even for tasks like clearing the forest. As strategies take shape, Arnold proposes introducing him to refugees who could serve as his workforce, allowing him to gain subjects without expense. Arnold further explains that this way he can sidestep the risks of taking in refugees himself. Finally, he decides to exploit this minor noble, who's working to maintain his territory's stability by trading favors. Noin warmly greets Viscount Konitz, noting it's been a while and thanking him for the invitation. Arnold apologizes for the sudden summons, expressing relief that she appears well. As their meeting begins, Arnold asks if the forest clearing is going smoothly. Noin says it's an honor to have his concern. She confirms that the work is moving along well, adding that favorable weather has helped. Arnold nods, remarking that a vast forest requires many workers to clear. He then inquires if she has sufficient manpower. Noin admits, frankly, that they're understaffed but managing thanks to their skilled citizens. Arnold pauses thoughtfully. He then offers a proposal, addressing her as Sir Almquist. As the conversation progresses, Arnold mentions an idea from a recent event. He points out that most involved are young. Noin understands, realizing he's suggesting she take in refugees for her territory. She praises his quick thinking, noting it's helpful. Arnold continues, saying he's ideal for the talent she needs. He recalls one being about 15 years old. Arnold muses about dealing with a young man just reaching adulthood. He concludes it will be effortless. Noin agrees, saying it's a valid point. She adds that it benefits both herself and His Excellency. Arnold responds with a surprise. Noin recognizes that taking in many refugees in Radovic is challenging due to the residents' sentiments, but she notes her territory's need for people, making her glad their goals align. She eagerly expresses her desire to accept the offer. Arnold acknowledges and agrees it's a win-win scenario. He then says he's pleased they had a mutually beneficial talk and hopes to foster a strong ongoing relationship. Arnold reflects that he misjudged the young man, initially seeing him only as Lord Kivalef's shameful history, but now realizes this illegitimate son outshines his father. Noin comments that this is indeed positive for both herself and His Excellency, reiterating her satisfaction with their aligned interests. Arnold muses that he would have liked to make Noin indebted by offering people for his sparse population, but Noin astutely framed the proposal as a shared benefit. Arnold observes that Noin is shrewd enough to avoid seeking dominance. He concludes that he was thoroughly outmaneuvered, deciding that Noin Alkist's reputation deserves a significant upgrade. Noin lets out a long sound, admitting she's feeling quite nervous. She points to her knee, which Bart calls a clear sign of anxiety. Bart remarks that she didn't seem nervous at all, sir, and Noin responds that if that's true, it's a relief. She adds that she's happy they reached an agreement, noting that 31 people are a blessing given their labor shortage. Noin then announces it's time to hurry back to the territory and prepare for the refugees' arrival, introducing herself as Noin Alkvist, the Lord of the Land, and welcoming everyone. At the gathering, Noin asks if a man is the refugees' representative, and Edgar introduces himself, explaining he was the heir to his village chief's family. Noin asks about their backstory, and Edgar agrees to share. He recounts living in a border village caught in conflict, where their lord's estate and then their village were attacked, leaving them without a lord and searching for a place to settle, eventually reaching Reykjavik. Edgar describes how only those with young children found refuge elsewhere, but many died from the grueling journey and hunger. He notes that over 50 left their village, but only a few remain. Edgar adds that his father and elders fought to buy them time to escape, likely dying, leaving them with nothing. Noin states that the workforce is less important than recognizing the shared pain and hatred in this tragedy, believing they deserve happiness. She expresses her wish to bring them joy, declaring her goal to ensure everyone's happiness as citizens of the Arlquist territory and pledging as Lord to do all she can to support this. Noin invites them to join her in building a happy future in the territory. Edgar thanks Lord Noin, recalling their near-death ordeal and promising never to forget her kindness. Matilda checks if Lady Noin is okay, and Noin admits she's struggling. Edgar expresses gratitude for Lady Noin's presence, while Noin, confused, turns to Matilda for guidance. Noin confesses she's deeply embarrassed by the situation. Matilda reflects on the pride a retainer feels seeing their master grow emotionally, and Noin acknowledges her. Yuri notes that Noin, who always craved admiration, is now shy receiving it, while Pence says Noin is an entertaining master. Noin admits she feels happy despite the moment. Edgar stared at his new land, feeling it was like a dream, far surpassing anything from his old village. He turned to Lord Noin, hopefully asking if this was truly happening. Noin nodded, confirming that all 31 new settler families would receive farmland. Then Noin scanned the crowd, observing their delight and noting how joyful everyone appeared. Edgar nodded in agreement when Noin called his name, signaling his readiness. Noin then spoke to Edgar, stating that his background as the village chief's eldest son gave him insight into the purpose of granting farmland. Edgar eagerly affirmed his understanding, promising to excel as a supervisor to fulfill Noin's expectations. Noin encouraged him, sharing plans to name him a squire overseeing agriculture if he succeeded, while Edgar showed shock at the opportunity. Finally, Edgar swore to dedicate his life to serving Noin, proving his loyalty. Yuri commented to Matilda that Lord Noin's action was remarkable, effective for the future but tinged with uncertainty, prompting Matilda's curiosity. Yuri clarified that village growth often involved the Lord's ventures or retainers chasing status, leading to land being controlled by those tied to the Lord, making it hard for others to become independent farmers. Yuri also noted that granting land to untrustworthy people could cause disputes. Meanwhile, Matilda wondered why Lord Noin chose this path. Yuri pointed out to Matilda that the new residents' joy and profound gratitude toward Lord Noin were clear, thanks to the farmland they received. Yuri then highlighted that the wealth and status the residents gained marked a huge leap from their previous despair, stressing the immense value of farmland to farmers. Yuri further explained that since farmland is fixed in place, the residents would always remember the favor, motivating them to fiercely back Lord Noin to repay their debt. Yuri wrapped up by saying that Lord Noin had secured their trust through this land grant. Matilda softly voiced her understanding, saying she got it now. Yuri then told Matilda that this land grant would also bring joy to Noin-sama, emphasizing his concern for their future. Matilda praised Noin-sama, calling him a remarkably talented and considerate leader. At the same time, Yuri started to describe Noin-sama's tactics as ruthless, but quickly reconsidered and dropped the comment. Noin asked about fundraising with a curious tone. Then, Noin nodded, thinking about future plans. Noin shared intentions to use severance pay from a past source in hunting profits, though hesitating slightly. Noin cautioned that winter was only 6 months away. Noin noted that their current funds couldn't cover hiring craftsmen to build houses, warning that without action, the group would face winter in tents. Noin voiced a goal to gather enough money to construct homes for all before that happened. Meanwhile, Noin pressed for everyone to think about the issue. Finally, Bart warned that spending winter in tents would cause people to freeze to death, looking for agreement with a questioning glance. Yuri suggested using spare wood to build a hut, but Noin insisted on constructing a proper, sturdy house. Noin remembered the chill of the old shack and wanted a warm home where no villager would suffer. Then, Noin envisioned a second floor to view the village homes, complete with a soft bed and a cozy bath. Bart asked if the plan would take 6 months, pausing thoughtfully. Noin confidently shared clear ideas for fundraising, proposing a search for an ore vein in the Restio Mountains. Noin explained that the Arctis territory sat at the northwestern edge of the Bizzle Great Forest, forming the Lordberg Kingdom's western border, with the Restio Mountains as the northern boundary. Noin mentioned that the Restio Mountains were famous for rich ore veins, prompting many northern nobles to mine, and saw it as a practical plan despite unknowns about local deposits. Yuri estimated a half-day walk to the mountains, a reasonable distance, while Bart noted that the territory's new manpower could support a survey, and Edgar recommended involving capable new residents. Yuri offered to lead the survey with Ladley and a few others suggested by Edgar. No one asked if joining the survey would cause issues, suggesting the Gollans could help. Yuri voiced concern that the physical strain might be tough for Noin-sama. Yuri recognized the concern but pointed out less reliance on carts for shopping, while Noin said the trip would build leg and back strength. Noin stressed that he couldn't leave the plan entirely to others, emphasizing his personal commitment. Pence proposed leading the team to the site once. The next day, Lord Noin struggled during the run and eventually collapsed. Matilda shouted in concern, seeing Lord Noin fall. Yuri commented with slight satisfaction, noting he'd foreseen this result. Noin voiced regret, admitting he often slowed the group down. Then Noin reflected with frustration, feeling like a failure as a lord. Yuri explained that the trip involved miles through a pathless forest and then rough mountains. He highlighted the group's strong builds, with men who had powerful arms and legs fit for mountain trails. Yuri suggested Lord Noin didn't need to push himself so hard. He clarified that Noin wasn't a burden, pointing out that Noin had been confined to a small hut until recently. Yuri added that rebuilding Noin's stamina to normal would take time, especially for mountain paths. Yuri praised Noin's extensive studies during his confinement, noting his impressive knowledge for his age. He admitted the group's limited knowledge and weak negotiation skills. Radley acknowledged Noin's abilities outshone Bart's, while Yuri described it as putting the right person in the right role. Yuri noted that Noin's leadership and hard work motivated the group to follow, though he kept this separate from other issues. Finally, Yuri expressed confidence in Noin-sama, encouraging him to trust the group in return. Noin decided to stay behind this time, agreeing with the choice. He told Matilda he felt fortunate, and she nodded in support. Then Noin considered how he could use his knowledge to aid the group since he couldn't join them, while Matilda started to reply thoughtfully. Noin disclosed a minor magical talent, surprising Yuri. Yuri tested it by asking if Noin could hear him, and Noin confirmed he clearly heard Yuri's voice in his mind. Noin explained that telepathy spells like telespeak allowed communication with distant people, acknowledging Yuri's partial telepathic ability, though Yuri called it limited compared to experts. Yuri recalled using it effectively in a past coordinated attack, commending its usefulness. During exploration, Yuri reported finding an odd rock, piquing Noin's interest with a curious look. Yuri described part of the rock formation as blue. Noin asked if the rock itself was blue or had crystals, and Yuri clarified it was stained blue without crystals, noting its large size and deep reach underground. Yuri mentioned lightly scraping the rock and finding it soft, and when Noin asked if it could be scratched by hand, Yuri confirmed a knife worked. Noin thought about the rock's softness, the tools available, and its blue, pigment-like stain. Noin shouted in delight, celebrating the find and laughing with excitement. Yuri, concerned, asked about the outburst, and Noin apologized, saying his joy got the better of him, then urged Yuri to gather as much of the rock as possible, hinting at its worth. Noin identified it as raw lapis lazuli and declared that this discovery would bring riches to his territory.